Well, I think I have realised there's an understanding that's gradually come upon me several things. Let me deal with one at a time. First of all, an obvious one, patriotism. A preference for one's own people as regards privilege, the land we're on, we have the right to it, they don't. We have the right to our society, they don't. Privilege, rights, obligations, and even duty are all very suspect concepts. For instance, in the presence of love, that which is right is done, not because of some imposed duty, responsibility, or because of some privileged rights, whether of nationality, membership, whatever. Love overrides and is preferred to all such concepts. They are all, and this includes deferment and respect. They are all inferior to love. Love says, I value you as much as myself. In the perfection of love, not more than, for I should matter to you equally too, as much as yourself. Should in the sense of ideally, if love were so. And if this is so, then what is right is done. Do you see, all things, privilege, right, honour, respect, have to be validated by being in conformity with love. If it's contrary to what one would do if one loved, then it's not right. And if it's not right, then these concepts are probably being imposed by a world that doesn't love. So, your partner might not love you and become violent. Well, you have a right with the state to seek protection because the situation you're in is not, in some sense, ideal, loving. And the state is willing to observe this particular type of lack of love, namely violence to you. It's not going to tolerate you being subject to violence. So it comes to your rescue. But do you see, its validity in coming to your rescue is that it protects you from an unlove. If it constrains you not to do what you want yourself, for yourself, that does not harm others, then it's not a valid rescue. It may be a legal right or imposition, for instance, to wear a crash helmet, but it is not right. It's a legal right, but it's not truly right. It's not valid. There's some argument that it could be valid where you have a national health system and your injury due to not wearing a helmet will responsibility of the state and their cost. In other words, your action doesn't just affect yourself, it affects cost to others. But even then, the ideal is not to insist on your constraint by the state, but to simply say you will not have automatic medical help in the event of an accident where you're injured, and the injury was largely because you didn't have crash helmet. You weren't taking reasonable precautions. Now you may say, well, that leaves people very vulnerable. Yes, but if anyone wants to come to your rescue, or you sustain the cost yourself, then they can. It's not that no one's allowed to help you. Do you see? I mean, I don't mean that it's terribly black and white. There are murky areas, you see. But broadly speaking, love has something about equality in it. I care for you as much as I care for myself. We care for people equally, whatever position they are in society. It shouldn't matter somehow. They should still be equally cared for. Because we're all children of God. Not some are children and some are not because they haven't made a commitment. No, they're all children of God. Some are wayward, yes. And some are so wayward that they're a menace to the others, so we may take steps to protect. But it's not to hurt, or to harm, or to punish. It's simply to protect those that are getting hurt. And this protection is available for all. That's the sort of loving principle, not for some and not others. For instance, our legal system is for those that can afford it in large measure, even with the rather poor system of legal aid that we have. I mean, it's better than nothing, don't get me wrong. But, a big corporation can amass funds and buy legal expertise that's very much in their favour. And in this regard, since we mentioned such, the concept of a business or a non-human, a non-life having a legal personage is extremely suspect. In other words, I'm saying it's okay to, in some sense, say, this is your business. It's quite another thing to say, this business has a legal personage in its own right. In other words, we are careful of sentient beings, those that have the ability to suffer, or the handicap of possibility of suffering, and we come to their protection. You know, there's a difference between suffering a building that's being damaged. The damage is, in a sense, not claimed to be to the building, but to whoever owns the building, or was benefiting from it and now can't. We have a concern for persons, and we define persons to be sentient beings. We might be able to do better. We may find that some entities are sentient, are not sentient but still beings. We get close to that with historic buildings, but really their value is not in their own right for being sentient, because they're not, as far as we know. It's in that we all, and future generations, suffer a loss if we don't care for this building. So we come to an agreement, in some sense out of love for the sentient beings of the present and the future, to protect this building, because we're really protecting something that so many of us value. Again, we're on a sort of murky area there, aren't we? But the bulk of the situation is pretty clear. The principle of love, which is concerned with sentient beings and some equality, they all count. There is a further murky area, which is, what about numbers? You know, one man can be killed for the protection of the other 5. Should we do it? Or should we say, no, one man's life is of the same importance as the life of the other 5? We're inclined to think not. Of course, we loathe such a dilemma of choice if it had to be made. But we would tend to solve it by the sheer numbers argument. And then people say, yes, but the 5 were extremely elderly, they were going to die in the next 6 months anyway, whereas the other one was a child. You know? And then he might say, well, the total number of years and the life of the child is more important. I mean, we might have a problem now as regards equality. I don't think I have the solution to that one just off the cuff, so to speak. But I suspect there is a loving optimality that we can go for. And by optimality I mean it's not the best we could imagine. We'd like to save it all. But if we're being constrained by the situation not to be able to save all, should we save the 5 or the 1? You know, and so forth. Such things can be, not reliably, but inferred to some extent. We're never going to be certain, are we? We're never going to be sure. I mean, we could always find, even with the basic principle of love, that someone comes along and argues the definition, and therefore we shift rather on what we feel is implied by love. But still, I think we make headway. Certainly we can, I say certainly, but it does seem that we can in large measure avoid some of the misconceptions, like humility. No, I do not want humility. I want you to realize you are of equal concern and importance. You're a person, you have needs and wants and feelings. You're a sentient being, and we respect that. We don't just respect it, we love. And the respect is only valid in as far as the respect is in accordance with love. I might respect someone because of their immense wealth. Well, that's not valid. I might respect their needs, their true needs, because they're a sentient being like myself. And that is valid. And who's to say this is valid and not the first? I am. This is what my values are. This is what I put first. This is who I am. This is what I value. and my God personifies this, until I'm of the experience and opinion that I'm wrong to do so and there's something better that I should be doing. If you can improve on that, well, good. I can't, so this is what I do.